So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Temari. So let's start the series. What's your name again? A tall blonde-haired whiskered boy asked sheepishly to the now irritated Suna Kunoichi. You don't remember me? The female asked in a raised voice with utter disbelief. How the hell does this kid not remember me after all these years? Speaking of which, where has this brat been this whole time anyways? The lady's thoughts were soon interrupted by a commanding feminine voice. Naruto, you won't find your opponent in here. You'll find him outside, Fifth Headmaster said while directing everyone's attention to the outside window. Curious to whom she was talking about, Naruto walked across the headmaster's room to the window and peered outside of it. Sixth Headmaster Sensei? Naruto asked, surprised to see his old-time sensei and friend just casually sitting outside the office window. Yo! Been a long time, huh, Naruto? Sixth Headmaster said while giving Naruto his well-known eye smile. Yup, speaking of which I have something to give you, hee. Naruto giggled before reaching for his back pouch. Sixth Headmaster could only look on with suspicion before he could see what Naruto was going to give him. When Naruto did pull it out, Sixth Headmaster instantly recognized that it was a book, and not just any perverted book. Is that the first new issue of the Makeout series in 3 years? Sixth Headmaster squeaked out from complete shock. Yup, but if you ask me, it's pretty boring, Naruto said while handing over the precious book to the now shaking Sixth Headmaster. Ahem! A loud cough brought the two soldier ninjas from their joyful reunion. Now that you two know who your opponent is, I dash. But she was quickly interrupted by her attentive apprentice. Wait, you mean both me and Naruto are fighting Sixth Headmaster Sensei? Pink Ninja asked quizzically. Fifth Headmaster nodded her head and waited patiently until she knew that Pink Ninja wouldn't interrupt her again. Actually, I was thinking that we should do this little spar later. I mean, Naruto, you just got back from your long training trip and you must be tired, Sixth Headmaster stated while turning to leave. Are you kidding, Sixth Headmaster Sensei? I've been waiting to show off what I've learned these past few years, and I'll be damned if such a minor nuisance such as being tired is going to stop me from fighting you, Naruto exclaimed with absolute exuberance. Sixth Headmaster couldn't help but to sweat drop at his former student's flamboyant nature. Thinking fast, Sixth Headmaster came up with the perfect excuse. Even so, I still have to work on one of my new spirit arts that I want to use against you both. So now I take my leave. Oh, and I'll meet you both at the training grounds. So long! And with that, Sixth Headmaster jumped off the headmaster's office window. Geez, he seemed to be in quite a hurry, the blonde-haired Sannin remarked while turning her chair around, soon noticing that both Temari and Shikamaru were still awkwardly standing in the doorway. Sorry about that, you two. I just remembered you were gonna hand over something to me? Fifth Headmaster asked to Shikamaru, trying to break the uncomfortable atmosphere. Yeah, here's the paperwork you requested for regarding the Soldier Ninja exams, he answered while walking across the room to the headmaster's desk and quickly handing off the paperwork to the headmaster. Damn it, with all this paperwork! I think I'm starting to go blind from seeing all this blinding white pile of paper stacked on my desk, she yelled while slamming her head down hard onto her desk, which slightly created some fissures within the wooden desk's foundation. Ha 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 ha, look, Granny, I think you're starting to go senile, Naruto pointed at Fifth Headmaster while roaring with laughter. You think getting old is funny, punk? The now enraged headmaster yelled back while furiously trying to get out of her chair, which only resulted in the chair being thrown at dangerous speeds at another Sannin. Oh, Kami! Why is it always me? Jiraiya whimpered before getting blasted by the speeding chair. Get back here, you little brat! Fifth Headmaster yelled before grabbing a piece of cloth from Naruto's clothing. Hold still and take your punishment like a man, she said while desperately trying to contain a now frantic Naruto. Get away from me, you ugly old hag! Naruto shrieked while kicking and screaming in all directions. Suddenly he felt some slack and his clothes soon gave way from the spontaneous slack that he felt from Fifth Headmaster's tight-gripped hold. Naruto slowly looked up in curiosity, and soon regretted that action. There was Fifth Headmaster still as a stone. Her blonde flowing hair covered her face so that it was unreadable. But her whole body was slightly trembling and her hands were unconsciously shaking. She suddenly lifted her head up and looked Naruto dead in the eye, which only made our blonde-haired soldier ninja gulp in fear of the impending doom that he unknowingly had put himself in. "I'm an ugly old hag, eh?" she said in a sickeningly sweet voice with a very large grin forming across her face. Suddenly she lifted her right hand up and made a quick hand sign. Her hand then glowed with a green aura around it, and a buzzing sound emanating from it. Naruto's eye grew wide from guessing what she had in mind for his punishment. Granny, I was just kidding, hee hee. You know I didn't really mean it, right?" Naruto asked nervously. He was answered with the now fully glowing right hand slowly inching towards his lower body. "Oh, come on! It was just a small joke, Granny! Can't you take dash?" A death-defying scream of unimaginable pain resounded throughout the whole Hidden Leaf village when Fifth Headmaster swiftly dealt out her unusual punishment to her foolish jokester. Temari could only shudder at what she just saw just now between the two. She was glad that her Kazekage wouldn't do such inhuman punishment to his fellow ninjas. Actually, now that she thought about it, he would probably just kill them for any minor stupidity. "No, Temari, that was the old Gaara. The new Gaara wouldn't do that anymore. Ever since then he has changed and became a more normal person," Temari thought to herself. She hated herself for occasionally still believing that her brother was still a bloodlust demon whose only purpose was to kill as many people as he could. No matter how much he had changed, the stigma of Gaara still wanting to kill her was branded into her brain. The sound of groaning pain woke her out of her deep thoughts and brought her back to the horrific scene that was in front of her. Fifth Headmaster was now casually sitting in her headmaster chair while Shizen was tending to both Naruto and Jiraiya, who were both grasping their lower parts. She couldn't help but to frown at those two's antics. "Well, I think we'll be taking our leave now, Headmaster," Shikamaru said nervously before turning around and preparing to leave. "You better take Naruto with you since he and Pink Ninja are leaving also." Fifth Headmaster sighed while looking at the two idiots' predicaments. "I'm not carrying Naruto," Pink Ninja stated before jumping out the window. Temari sure as hell wasn't going to carry this brat to the training grounds. But she noticed that something was off. She quickly glanced to her left, and to her absolute dismay Shikamaru had disappeared on her. "That troublesome lazy no-good Nara!" Temari fumed while face-palming herself at her own situation. Fifth Headmaster only smirked at the girl's reaction to the events and spoke up. Temari, good to know that you would like to volunteer to carry Naruto to the training grounds." Fifth Headmaster winked at the now fist-clenching fan user. But Temari only ended up mumbling to herself, and hastily picked up the pained Naruto and carelessly dragged the poor boy out of the headmaster's office. "If I didn't know any better, that moment just reminded me of when Dan would drag my sorry ass back to my house when I was too wasted to walk home." Fifth Headmaster chuckled mostly to herself, while Shizen leaned back against the wall hesitantly giggling with nervousness. Jiraiya meanwhile had went into a somewhat peaceful unconsciousness only because the pain in his lower body had numbed up. Temari was slowly making her way across town while carrying an ever-groaning Naruto leaning against her shoulder. Other than having a full-grown boy being carried on her, she noticed that the two of them were getting strange looks from the Hyde Ninja village population. Some of the looks showed sadness and pity. Some even showed a sense of humor at what they were seeing. But there was no denying that most of the looks were consisted of pure and utter hatred, and the other was prevalent fear. Temari couldn't understand why these people would still hate the Hidden Sand Village after all these years. Hell, Suna should be more scared of Hyde Ninja Village than vice versa. But she couldn't understand the looks for Naruto though. I mean, he was a Hyde Ninja Village ninja, a hero if she had to think about it. What is up with these people? It's like they are staring at us like we're demons or some sorts. Temari thought to herself. Don't mind them, you learn to get used to it after a while. A sullen voice directed her back to the blonde-haired boy that she was carrying. He was looking at the ground and his face was unreadable since his head was facing down. Why do they look at you like that in the first place, Naruto? Temari asked innocently. There was no good reason for why the villagers should have looked at him that way in the beginning. This whole atmosphere felt similar to her somehow, but she couldn't figure it out at the moment. Naruto chuckled, which made Temari raise an eyebrow at the boy's action before he spoke up. Gee, I wish I knew also. He grinned at a now stupefied Kunoichi. What the hell do you mean you don't know? You've been living here since you were a baby and you still don't know why they look at you like that? Temari exclaimed at Naruto, which made him flinch a bit from the hostile tone. I never said I didn't know why they look at me like that. What I meant to say was, I don't know why they still look at me like that. Naruto answered back before going back to groaning in pain. Both ninjas soon entered an uncomfortable silence while turning around a sharp corner and trying their best at ignoring the venomous glares they both were receiving. How's Gaara been doing? Naruto asked out of the blue. Temari was a bit taken aback by the question before she recovered and replied. He's a lot better, actually. Ever since that day you two fought, he's become more human in every aspect of his life. Simply stating, he doesn't want to kill all the time like he used to. She could remember that day like it was only yesterday. The battle between that blonde-haired brat and her most feared bloodthirsty brother was so intense that she knew that she would never forget that fight in her lifetime. Smiling at hearing that a fellow Jinchuriki was doing better, Naruto quickly made a remark. I bet he's a very powerful soldier ninja now, huh? Naruto said mostly to himself. But Temari had to raise an eyebrow at this. Naruto? Haven't you heard? Gaara's now the Kazekage for the Hidden Sand Village. Temari informed Naruto only to witness Naruto's surprised reaction. What? He's already Kazekage and I'm still only a lowly genin. Naruto cried to himself while crouching on the dirt ground and covering his face with his open hands. Temari couldn't believe what she was seeing. Probably the most powerful ninja she has ever witnessed was bawling like a little baby in front of her eyes. Quite frankly, it was getting on her nerves. She quickly snatched her fan off from her back and gripped it with a vice-like grip. Naruto! She slammed the butt end of her fan into the morning boy and launched him 50 feet into the air before landing back into the earth with an bone-cracking sound. Shit! Probably should have not done that. Probably should have definitely not done that. Temari repeated to herself while sighing out loud before checking up on the now terrified Naruto. Oh Kami! Why are all the kunoichis this terrifying? Naruto thought to himself while he watched Temari slowly walk up to him. Sorry about that, Naruto. I'm just not used to that type of behavior around me, she said apologetically while thrusting a hand out for Naruto to grab. Yeah, no kidding, Naruto replied painfully. With help from Temari, he quickly picked himself up and dusted himself off. This was the perfect moment for Temari to really get a good look at the boy in front of her. She couldn't stop herself from slightly blushing from seeing Naruto's clothes slightly torn up and seeing the exposed skin that was revealed to her. She could definitely see the ripped muscles pulsating from his body. Even more attractive was Naruto's facial features. When he whipped his golden hair around to get rid of the dirt in his hair, it looked like his hair was made out of golden silk. It only added on to his features when she noticed his whiskers that she couldn't help but to squeal a bit from seeing. And then there were his eyes. Oh Kami, his eyes. They were a deep cerulean color, and she couldn't stop herself from being entranced by their absolute beauty. Temari was beginning to drool at the sight before her until Naruto's voice broke her out of her eye-candying. Hey, why are you looking at me like that? It's kinda creeping me out a bit. Naruto asked, a little nervous by the wind mistress's strange facial expression towards him. Temari quickly realized what she was doing and shook her head viciously in order to clear her head. Naruto could only add on to his theory that all kunoichis were weird and scary. Well, I think you're okay now to walk, Temari stated, gazing at Naruto, who was now hesitantly trying to walk. Yeah, I think you're right, Naruto yelled out in delight. I can't believe Granny would tear my groin just for something as silly as a harmless joke. Naruto snorted before jumping for joy since he could walk now on his own. But Temari had other thoughts going through her head. Wait, did I just hear that correctly? She tore his groin? She tore his groin? Temari screamed in her head. How the hell is he able to walk then? There's no way he could have healed that fast tunnel's dash. She was again interrupted in thinking by a now suddenly skittish Naruto. Can I ask you a really important question? Naruto asked somewhat seriously. Mystified by the sudden attitude change from the hyperactive brat, she slowly nodded her head in confirmation. What's your name again? Naruto asked sheepishly, knowing something really bad was going to happen soon. Temari soon narrowed her eyes so much that they could now be described as slits on her face. Naruto! Are you trying to make me hate your guts? She charged Naruto with her battle fan in both her hands. Naruto yelped in fear and quickly dashed off to the training field. Come back here, you dim-witted brat! All throughout the village, everyone could both hear and see two crazy blondes going at it. One was a boy who appeared to be running for his life, while the other blonde was a girl who appeared to be possessed by the devil herself. It's fair enough to say that the village that day had more than enough entertainment for that day. Naruto and Temari had finally made it to the training ground after several long detours that both blondes decided to take. Pink Ninja was somewhat surprised to see a battered and bruised Naruto dropped off, literally, by a fuming Temari, who then unpredictably began to calmly walk to the exit gates of Hyde Ninja Village. But before she walked too far, she turned her head around slightly and glared at the partially conscious blonde and spoke up. And my name is Temari Yubaka! Temari! She huffed out before turning around again and finally walking off. So that's what her name was, Naruto said half-heartedly. Naruto didn't care about the whole name issue right now. He had bigger problems, like, why couldn't he feel his left toe, or why did he keep hearing a loud and obnoxious ringing in his head when clearly there wasn't any bells near him. But Pink Ninja could only shake her head in disappointment, and had her arms crossed and eyes closed before speaking. You're so hopeless, Naruto. Naruto's ears perked at that remark, and he was quickly back to his old flamboyant self. What's that supposed to mean, Pink Ninja? Naruto asked, slightly annoyed that his teammate didn't actually seem to care about his current ordeal. I mean about women. At this rate, you'll probably be killed by a woman instead of being killed by a man, Pink Ninja stated bluntly before walking off into the training grounds. Pink Ninja, wait for me! Naruto yelled while speedily getting to his feet and sprinting towards Pink Ninja in order to catch up with her. Both ninjas soon entered the training grounds before a realization hit them both. Simultaneously, they both answered the question that both of them knew before they even thought about it. He's late. 2 hours later, 6th Head Master Sensei finally showed up at the training ground. Sorry that I'm late. Old lady crossed my dash. Give us a break already! Both ninjas yelled in unison, while 6th Head Master sweat dropped at the two's actions. 6th Head Master soon guided them to the battle area and was met with a surprised reaction from his former pupils. I remember this place. It only seemed like yesterday that all three of us were here, Naruto said quietly while being content with gazing at a nearby wooden pole that he remembered vividly to being tied up to. Oh, that's right. This is where you had the bell test done. 6th Head Master smiled behind his mask. Those were the times when the three of them were just beginning out as genin ninjas and were both inexperienced and naive. That's when Naruto friend was with us. Pink Ninja trailed off, causing a ripple effect with everybody who heard her. Naruto was now cowering on the ground mourning to himself, and Pink Ninja soon joined him in crying also. 6th Head Master gave a disbelief look at seeing both ninjas' depressed feelings. I'd better change the subject fast or else I will start tearing up also. Sixth headmaster thought before closing his perverted book up, while pulling out 2 brass bells out from his back pocket. The bell made a subtle ringing sound which alerted the 2 crying people towards the direction of the sound. All right, guys, same rule as before. You pass when you both acquire these bells from me. Doing whatever it takes, he instructed before continuing on. If we don't go in with the intent to kill then we will never get the bells. Both Naruto and Pink Ninja completed Sixth Headmaster's last sentence in sync. Sixth Headmaster couldn't help but to smile at the 2 people in front of him. I guess they both have matured a lot while I was gone. Sixth Headmaster thought pleasantly to himself before assuming his jounin stance, and Naruto and Pink Ninja soon copied his action by assuming their own stances as well. The test begins when I say start, Naruto. Naruto could only smirk from the memory of what happened last time he took this test. Looking between the 2 ninjas, Sixth Headmaster assumed everything was in order and was ready to begin the evaluation. Start! And with that, Sixth Headmaster vanished into thin air. Fast forwarding in the fight, since most of it is the same as in the canon more or less. Now with Jiraiya and Fifth Headmaster now who are watching the fight from afar. It seems the Gaki has learned a lot from your 3-year training trip. Fifth Headmaster smiled while watching the 2 ninjas hash it out against Sixth Headmaster Sensei, who was now showing noticeable fatigue from combating 2 very skilled fighters. So it would seem, Fifth Headmaster. So it would seem. Same goes for your apprentice Pink Ninja Haruno also. Jiraiya returned the compliment before watching Pink Ninja obliterate a nearby tree into thousands of tiny splinters. And for better or worse, she's almost a mirror replica of yourself, Fifth Headmaster, he said while wincing from watching Pink Ninja repeatedly demolishing trees after trees. Fifth Headmaster could only shake her head in amusement before replying back to her fellow perverted Sannin. I hope you didn't make Naruto into a pervert like you while you had him with you for 3 years. She questioned while slowly narrowing her eyes. Jiraiya could only laugh at her worries and responded back assuredly. Are you kidding? He's nothing like me. Because I'm not just any old pervert, I'm a super pervert. Jiraiya exclaimed, making Fifth Headmaster rub her forehead in aggravation from her friend's idiotic episodes. Hey, is that the Sand Kunoichi from earlier? Jiraiya asked randomly while pointing off into the distance to a densely grouped bunch of trees. Fifth Headmaster then squinted her eyes with difficulty and gazed into that direction. When she did indeed see the wind mistress of Suna, she could only smile at the girl. Jiraiya, noticing this, raised an eyebrow and stared at Fifth Headmaster expectantly. Yes, she's been there since the beginning of the fight. Fifth Headmaster answered, unusually chirpy. Now Jiraiya had both eyebrows raised from this newfound information. Why is she even here in the first place? Wasn't she supposed to leave tonight? Jiraiya asked with anticipation. But Fifth Headmaster only shrugged her shoulders and waved away the question. Speaking of leaving tonight, since it's already getting dark out and I think it would be in Hyde Ninja Village's best intentions to provide her with a bodyguard, I'd like to assign a C-rank mission of escorting her back to Suna, Fifth Headmaster said before rubbing the back of her head in discomfort. However, all my ninjas are unavailable due to either being already assigned a mission or patrolling the town tonight. She scolded to herself. What about that Nara kid? You know, the one who always says, "This is such a drag." Or even better, troublesome. Jiraiya asked while mimicking the lazy boy's posture during those infamous quotes. Fifth Headmaster couldn't stop herself from cracking up from her friend's sense of humor, and began giggling uncontrollably from seeing Jiraiya impersonate the young jounin. When she had her fill of laughter, she answered back somewhat seriously. Haha, no, he's too damn busy planning the Soildeer ninja exams to be able to help out with such a benign task such as escorting a diplomat, she stated while still watching the fight in front of them. Jiraiya then took up a thinking pose beside a nearby tree and began running ideas through his head. He finally hit upon an idea and made a very large grin which unnerved fifth headmaster since she didn't usually see that type of grin unless it had to deal with his recreational peeping. I got it! Why don't we send the blonde-haired Gaki to escort her? Jiraiya proposed while twiddling his fingers together in a very devious way. Fifth headmaster thought about it, and came to the conclusion that yes, that would be fine. Alright, for once I agree with you on that idea. But can I ask you something? She questioned while looking at Jiraiya's twiddling fingers. Why the hell are you acting like that? Jiraiya looked at what he was doing and quickly stopped twiddling his fingers. He decided to act stupid and simply shrugged his shoulders in a carefree way, making fifth headmaster grow a tick mark on her forehead at her toad sage's childish nature. She soon heard a wave of cheering and hollering from behind her. She quickly turned around to see Naruto and Pink Ninja each holding a bell of their own, while sixth headmaster looked distraught and disappointed. I guess we win, sixth headmaster sensei, Pink Ninja stated with a huge grin on her face. Sixth headmaster only nodded towards her statement before trying to get back up to his feet. But he was suddenly met with a hand in his face. Looking towards the origin of the hand, he saw Naruto beaming at him with a radiant smile. Sixth headmaster graciously took his hand and pulled himself up with the help from the young Jinchuriki. Hey sixth headmaster, I hate to break it to you, but I never even read the whole book, let alone the end of it. Sixth headmaster wide-eyed at the revealing information that just lost him the fight. In fact, after I read the first 3 pages I just closed the book and never bothered reading it ever again. Naruto informed the now bewildered one-eyed soldier ninja. Sighing out loud, sixth headmaster spoke up ruggedly. I guess that is one of the skills to have for a ninja, lie and deceit. Both Naruto and Pink Ninja grinned at their accomplishment at finally beating their sensei at his own game. Unknown to any of them, Temari was softly laughing at how the fight had ended. I wish every fight ended with a simple one-liner. She giggled to herself before turning her back towards the combatants and leaping off the branch that she had watched the fight on. From what I've watched, Naruto appears to have gotten a lot more powerful since the last time I saw him. And what was that one spirit art? It looked like a swirling spherical ball of core energy being controlled by a wind element? Temari shook her head in denial. No, that's nearly impossible. Wind users in the fire country are extremely rare. But then what kind of spirit art was that then? I remember him yelling it out. What did he say? Damn it, think Temari! After a short moment of self-berating, she inevitably remembered. Aha! He yelled out. Wind ball power. Spiraling sphere. Wait a minute! I've heard that spirit art before. I think it was the 4th headmaster who first created it. Temari wide-eyed at the sudden revelation. This only made her theory about Naruto being a very powerful soldier ninja more prevalent. Naruto, how much stronger have you gotten? She asked mentally to herself while slowly turning her gaze towards the now setting sun. Back with the group of ninjas, 5th headmaster and Jiraiya suddenly revealed themselves to their pupils from appearing out from the tree they were hiding behind. Well done, kids, it would seem that your training didn't go to waste after all. 5th headmaster chuckled while elbowing Jiraiya in his side, making him sidestep from his sudden loss of balance. Thank you, headmaster. Pink Ninja replied back sincerely while bowing down to her teacher. Naruto simply gave them a heartwarming grin while showing them a thumbs up. Well, that's enough for today. You all can go home now and rest for tomorrow. You all deserve it, especially you 6th headmaster. 5th headmaster winked at 6th headmaster, who only gave a half-effort wave showing that he understood her deeper meaning. Everyone said their goodbyes and began leaving until 5th headmaster spoke up towards a certain whiskered-faced blonde. Naruto, wait for a minute, would you please? 5th headmaster asked politely. Naruto, curious as to what 5th headmaster would want, paused mid-stride and turned a 180 so that he was now facing her. Yeah, so what's up, Granny? Naruto asked honestly while crossing his arm. 5th headmaster quickly had a tick mark appear on her forehead and yelled at the smirking blonde. When will you stop calling me that? She demanded. When you stop using that genjutsu to cover your old facial features. Naruto replied simply. I'll only do that when you grow up, if you ever grow up. She countered blandly. Anyways, the reason I asked you to stay behind was because I have a mission for you to take. Naruto's full attention was now solely focused on Fifth Headmaster. Really? A mission for me already? After seeing her nod her head in confirmation, Naruto asked, now very interested in this conversation. What kind of mission is it, Granny? Is it a super dangerous mission? No, I bet it's a super secret S-rank mission. Oh, please tell me. Naruto begged while jumping up and down like a rabid rabbit. Calm down, Naruto. I think you'll like this mission. It's a... Fifth Headmaster trailed off so that Naruto would unconsciously lean in closer from the anticipation. C-rank mission involving you to escort a special diplomat. Fifth Headmaster said jubilantly, but there would be no sounds of joy coming from Naruto. What? I don't want a stupid C-rank mission. I didn't leave Hyde Ninja Village for 3 years to come back and take a stupid C-rank mission. I demand that you change my mission or else I'm going home. Besides, I have better things I could be doing, such as gouging into my limitless supply of ramen. Naruto cried out in absolute bliss. He soon felt a dark presence near his location, and slowly turned and looked towards Fifth Headmaster's direction. Naruto, if you don't want to spend the rest of your young soldier ninja career participating in only D-rank missions, that especially includes Madame Shijimi's weekly mission of trying to catch her crafty cat Tora, you will accept this mission or else Kami help you. Fifth Headmaster informed Naruto with defiance while cracking her knuckles. Naruto automatically had a noticeable chill go down his spine. He gulped deeply while rapidly going through all his very limited options. Sighing in defeat, Naruto gave in to Fifth Headmaster's demands and asked about the mission details. Oh, you know, it's just a simple escort, that's all. I just want you to guard Temari all the way back to her home village of Suna. Naruto suddenly scratched his cheek in an awkward manner which made Fifth Headmaster raise an eyebrow at this spontaneous show of distress. Is there something wrong with this mission that you would like to share with me? Fifth Headmaster asked questioningly. There's nothing wrong exactly. It's just, well, I think Temari hates me. Naruto finally muttered out. Fifth Headmaster couldn't prevent herself from chuckling from her brat's innocence. Naruto subtly started to turn slightly pink from embarrassment before Fifth Headmaster spoke up. Then this mission should be even harder, haha. Heck, it might even be an unofficial B-rank mission, she cried out with great sarcasm. Very funny, Granny. I'm sure Shizen's always taking an S-rank mission and taking care of your old ragged self. Naruto mumbled while beginning to leap off towards the exit gate of the Hidden Leaf Village. Hey brat, I heard that. Fifth Headmaster yelled out from behind Naruto, who was now disappearing from view. I wonder if I should have told him that she was watching him the entire time during his fight with Sixth Headmaster Sensei. After a while, she just simply shook her head in opposition. Nah, besides he always wants to do everything the hard way. Fifth Headmaster chuckled to herself before slowly walking back to the headmaster's office. Temari had left Hyde Ninja Village's gate about 30 minutes ago before she heard her name being shouted from behind her. Curious as to who would be calling her name at this hour, she turned around and was slightly surprised to see Naruto running towards her. Naruto? What are you doing out here at this time of night? She asked a heavily breathing Naruto. He simply put one hand up, showing a universal sign for hold on. So she patiently waited for Naruto to get his air back before motioning for him to answer her previous question. I have a C-rank mission that I was forced to participate in by Granny Fifth Headmaster. Naruto spat out Fifth Headmaster's name before continuing on. I have to escort you all the way back to Suna regardless of whether or not you need it. Naruto finished before fixing his leaf headband that had come undone from his speedy travel. Thanks, but no thanks. I can handle traveling by myself perfectly fine, Temari announced while turning around and preparing to leave before she felt a soft hand grab her wrist, preventing her from walking off. She instinctively turned around to see why Nerda would dare grab her wrist in such a manner before she saw Nerda's face inches away from her. She peered into his ocean-colored eyes and started to feel similar emotions that she felt earlier that day. No, you don't understand. I was forced to do this. Nerda emphasized the last few words. Temari's cheeks were starting to heat up from the close proximity both were at. Why are his hands so warm? She thought to herself. She had been walking for a while now and had began to feel the foreign feeling of cold before Nerda grabbed her. Nerda, please let go of my wrist. Temari commanded calmly, to which Nerda sheepishly responded back to her command by gently letting go of Temari's wrist. Frowning at the now foreign feeling of cold again, she looked back up towards Nerda and spoke up. Well, if that's the case, then I guess I can't do anything about it. Just try to keep up, Baka. And with that, Temari walked off in the direction of Suna. Nerda sighed quietly to himself, and quickly caught up to Temari so that they were now walking side by side while in sync with each other's footsteps. Nerda soon looked up into the skies and couldn't help but marvel at how bright the night sky truly was. There seemed to be a lot more stars than he last remembered since he was near the Hidden Leaf Village. Temari, noticing this innocent action, followed Nerda's movement, and also looked up and came to the same thought as the blonde-haired Jinchuriki. Wow, I thought there were only this many stars back home. Temari thought to herself before focusing all her attention on the path home once again. Nerda meanwhile was content with just closing his eyes, holding his head back with his hands clasped behind it, and walking while listening to the soft crunching sounds coming from underneath Temari's footsteps for direction. They both soon entered a long duration of mutually peaceful silence the rest of the night. Maybe this mission of having Nerda escort me isn't such a bad thing. At least I won't be lonely walking home this time around. Temari grinned to herself before letting herself go and getting lost solely in the presence of nature. Mysterious location. Lord Payne, there appears to be a slight problem. A mysterious voice sounded towards a holographic figure. What kind of problem, Sasori? The figure appearing to be named Payne asked while narrowing his eyes. One of my spies has reported that the Ninetales is apparently traveling to Suna with a diplomat named Temari as we speak. Sasori answered back informatively. 7 figures in the room moved around in discomfort, while Payne seemed to be in deep thought about the problem. Yes, that does make things complicated. Payne finished off. One of the members slowly opened his eyes, revealing his fully formed Sharingan, and decided to share his thoughts on the case. Lord Payne, I believe it would be wise of us if we delayed our plans of kidnapping the One-Tails until we have found a suitable replacement plan, Itachi said calmly while gazing around the room for any opposition. Don't tell me you're too scared to fight those kids, Itachi? A shark-skinned figure accused Itachi while receiving several chuckles from around the room from various S-rank criminals. Closing his eyes, and showing no emotion whatsoever, Itachi spoke in a monotone. Kisame, it is not that I am afraid of fighting these 2 Jinchuriki. It's that, unlike you, I follow through with the plans given to me. And we were ordered to get the Ninetales last. Kisame huffed at his partner's blunt explanation and turned away from him in frustration. Itachi Uchiha is correct. We cannot afford to fight both the One-Tails and the Ninetales without risking absolute annihilation. A female member spoke out to the rest of the participants. I say we target the Two-Tails then. Everyone raised an eyebrow at this suggestion from one of their mysterious member. You do know we need the One-Tail first, correct? Payne asked, curious as to what Kakuzu was suggesting. Yes, we do need the One-Tail, but we can still capture the Two-Tails without sealing it. Everyone murmured their support for what sounded like a solid plan. Very well, the Akatsuki will go after the Two-Tails first. Since Kakuzu and Haiden suggested this plan, they will have the honor of going after it, Payne announced, receiving a nod of confirmation from those 2. Soon, the Soldier Ninja world will know Payne, he declared before all 5 holographic figures disappeared. A fair-skinned person with short, Spiky auburn hair was busy dealing with paperwork during the late hours of the night. Not that it mattered to this person, for he could not sleep without having horrific nightmares plague him throughout his sleep, which were created from his sinister demon. But over the years, the one-tails had slowly gotten more manageable for the boy. It became manageable to the point where the demon didn't define the boy anymore. The boy wasn't driven by the bloodlust that the demon craved for. Instead, the boy grew a whole new persona and was forever changed by ironically another fellow Jinchuriki. No, Gaara was an entirely different person compared to the one 3 years ago who would kill just to prove his existence. Slowly, his new attitude and thinking rubbed off on his fellow peers that, during the width of time, he had attained the recognition he so craved when he was younger. He finally was recognized for himself rather, and not as the demon. He is now the Kazekage for the Hidden Sand Village, and has now attained the highest rank possible in his ninja village. The highest honor he thought he could attain until Gaara abruptly stopped writing his letter to the Hidden Leaf Village when he suddenly notices a sudden surge of core energy nearby. Lifting his head up from his writing, he carefully eyes his office with absolute detail while squinting a bit from the lack of light that his desk candle could offer. Peering through the darkness, Gaara sees nothing out of the ordinary, but still knows that something is off. He slowly turns his head towards the office window, which currently has moonlight streaming through it, allowing for the room to have a certain glow to illuminate it. Standing up, Gaara carefully made his way to the window so he could stare out into the sky and gaze at the moon. He always enjoyed these nights, they seemed to calm both himself and his demon. He looked down at the buildings below him and couldn't stop himself from sighing. Too many terrible memories were made down there, and now they forever haunted him. Getting tired of his guest's rather irritating game of hide and go seek, Gaara spoke up calmly towards the darkness. "What do you want, Lord Jiraiya?" he asked without blinking an eyelash. Suddenly, the air around the room seemed to all be vacuumed up to a specific area in the office. Then, a small poof of smoke could be both seen and heard in the middle of the room. "Ah, Gaara, how did you know it was me?" Jiraiya complained playfully while wiping the remnants of smoke off himself. "Eureka frog," Gaara stated plainly before turning his back towards the window, and calmly strolling across the room to his chair that he then immediately sat in. "They're toads, actually," Jiraiya corrected to a now bored-looking Kazekage. "It's an honor to be in the presence of a Sannin, but why are you here?" Gaara asked now with his hands clasped together and elbows on his desk in an attentive pose. Jiraiya suddenly put on a serious face and slowly reached into one of his many pockets, and soon pulled out a scroll. He then casually with the flick of his wrist tossed it to the seated Kazekage. Gaara nonchalantly caught it in the air and looked at the toad sage in an asking manner. Jiraiya nodded his head in confirmation, and Gaara carefully unrolled it. After several moments, Gaara looked up and glanced at the Sannin with newfound interest. "This is an assassination document." Gaara could instantly tell that it was one the moment he caught the scroll. His father, who used to be the Kazekage, had tried to have his son assassinated several times. Usually any assassination document would mean little to Gaara, however this sheet of paper had a strange insignia stamped on it that Gaara never saw before. "You had a traitor in your midst, Lord Kazekage," Jiraiya said blatantly. Gaara lifted an eyebrow at this subliminal piece of information before Jiraiya continued on with his explanation. "No need to fret, my red-headed friend, I have taken care of him. And before you ask who know this, your council will notice someone missing during their next meeting," he stated before walking up to the Kazekage's desk and pouring himself some water. Sighing with satisfaction from the refreshing drink, he turned his attention back to Gaara, who now looked like he was in deep thought. "There's more you want to tell me, isn't there?" Gaara asked while looking off into the distance. "Ah, you're very attentive, I see. Yes, there is something I wish to ask from you," Jiraiya said while meticulously putting down his cup of water. "First, I must ask you a fairly basic question. Have you ever heard of the Akatsuki?" Gaara cautiously shook his head in denial and looked up at the toad sage expectantly. They are an infamous criminal organization consisted up of currently 8 S-ranked criminals. Their plans are shrouded in mystery, but from what I've learned from my spy network, their plan has something to do with the Jinchurikis and their tailed beasts. Jiraiya explained to a now unreadable Gaara. I had a suspicion that they would go after you first since you have the one-tails, but it would turn out to be false. I think Naruto coming to Suna had something to do with it. He trailed off while talking mostly to himself at this point. Gaara's ears twitched slightly, and a very slight smirk formed in one of the corners of Gaara's mouth when he heard Naruto's name. So Naruto's coming here. Gaara muttered to himself, in which Jiraiya noticed right away. Yes, he is coming. He will be here tomorrow afternoon with your older sister Temari, with who he was inhumanely ordered to escort back to Suna. Jiraiya added while giggling from remembering the scene between the blonde-haired brat and fifth headmaster. He had stealthily hid behind some trees and spied on the two blondes while eavesdropping on their little conversation. It was a miracle that he didn't burst out laughing because of the two's crazy interactions with one another. Actually, the same could be said about himself and the brat. Gaara looked at Jiraiya in a puzzled manner while he was giggling, but soon thought nothing of it. So is that all, Lord Jiraiya? Gaara asked calmly to the now hysterical Sannin. Huh? Oh yes, I mean no, there is one more thing, he replied before suddenly looking around the room. Gaara couldn't help but to find what the older man was doing somewhat odd. I hope Naruto's changed and is nothing like this man, he thought hopeful to himself. I want you and Naruto to go to Kumo. Again, Gaara was a bit surprised by what the Sannin was asking. I can't leave my village, Gaara answered back quietly, which had forced Jiraiya to lean in closer in order to catch Gaara's recent words. What do you mean you can't go? Jiraiya asked in disbelief. Gaara gradually closed his eyes and spoke up cautiously. Why do you want us to go in the first place? Well, from what has happened and hasn't, I predict that the Akatsuki will target the Two Tails since they seem to be skipping you for now, he responded back while rubbing his chin in thought. And I've also learned that Kumo has 2 Jinchurikis who can fully control their tailed beasts' powers, Jiraiya said with interest. Noticing that his listener was awfully quiet, Jiraiya glanced back down towards the redhead. Gaara was now stone still. None of his body parts were even moving, and his breathing was so subtle that Jiraiya was getting quite worried about whether or not if Gaara was even breathing. Wanting to get Gaara's attention, Jiraiya coughed loudly, to which, to the Sannin's relief, Gaara twitched his eyes up towards him and stared at him. He then stared beyond where Jiraiya was standing, which made the Toad Sage cautiously glance over his shoulder in curiosity. I have no reason to leave my village, Lord Jiraiya, Gaara stated plainly before continuing. I learned many years ago from your student Naruto that there's more to power than just knowing spirit arts or even being skilled. That hate alone will not make you truly powerful, Gaara explained while gradually getting out of his chair. No, real strength was, what I failed to acknowledge before I met Naruto, the will to protect those who you deem to be precious to you. To do whatever it takes in order to make them safe no matter what. I have taken that philosophy to heart, and included it into my Nindo. I've made a vow to protect each and every person in my village. They are all precious to me and I cannot abandon them, Gaara said while affirming his beliefs. Jiraiya could only nod at this deep explanation from the Kazekage. Geez, that idea truly reminds me of Naruto, Jiraiya thought pleasantly to himself. Naruto, do you even know how much he changed people? Jiraiya asked proudly. He then looked Gaara straight into eyes since he was now standing directly in front of the Sannin and spoke up softly. Well, that is true and all, but you can't protect them all without learning more about yourself. Jiraiya then received a confused look from Gaara, to which he continued with his proposal. The One-Tails is a part of you whether you want to accept it or not. Because of this, if you don't learn more about the One-Tails, then how can you possibly protect anyone else to the best of your abilities if you can't even protect yourself, Gaara? Jiraiya implored while watching the Kazekage's reaction. Gaara couldn't keep looking into the Sannin's eyes any longer. He quickly diverted his eyes down towards the ground in discomfort. What the Sannin just said made a whole lot of sense. Still, Gaara was a bit reluctant to entirely follow through with the proposal until Jiraiya stated something very personal to him. Yashimaru would have wanted you to do this. Gaara threw his head up in utter shock at what the Sannin had just told him. Gaara then clenched his fists tightly before asking in an angry tone, "How do you know her? How would you know my childhood?" Gaara was now shaking uncomfortably and now had totally lost his extremely stoic composure. Jiraiya looked towards his right and sighed softly to himself before speaking up carefully. "I know that Orochimaru killed your parents. Well, your mother indirectly, more or less." Jiraiya hinted quietly, making Gaara's eyes go wide in absolute shock from this sudden information. "I promise you I will tell you the whole ordeal some other time. But as of right now, you have to go to Kumo with Naruto. Together you guys must plead for help from the Raikage, who is currently named A, for your tailed beast's powers," Jiraiya insisted to Gaara. After several long moments of pondering from Gaara, he slowly raised his head up towards Jiraiya and spoke up in a neutral tone. "Very well. I shall leave with Naruto once he gets here." Jiraiya patted Gaara's left shoulder and reassured the young Kazekage. "Everything will be fine as long as you're with him." Jiraiya chuckled, which unconsciously made Gaara grin slightly from the deeper meaning. Jiraiya then looked outside towards the now rising sun and quickly gasped. "Crap! It's nearly morning! I gotta leave now before they get there." The perverted Sannin shrieked mostly to himself before going through several hand signs. But he was quickly interrupted by the Kazekage of Suna. "If you're planning on peeping on the kunoichis while they bathe, I suggest strongly against it," Gaara warned Jiraiya while slowly making his way towards his Kazekage's desk in order to continue with his paperwork. "Ha ha, don't worry about me, Lord Kazekage. I can handle myself around dangerous, angry women, thank you very much." Jiraiya laughed out loud before finishing his hand seals. Gaara then effortlessly lifted his head up so that his cold eyes were staring right into Jiraiya's. "If the kunoichis don't kill you, I will," he threatened dangerously while leaking out some of his sand from his gourd. Jiraiya could only gulp and to begin to sweat profusely from Gaara's frightening glare before he vanished into a puff of smoke. "I really hope Naruto's not like that man at all," Gaara sighed before he went back to his paperwork. Somewhere in the desert. "Are we there yet?" "No." "Are we there now?" "No." "How about now?" "Damn it, Naruto, we're not there yet!" Temari screamed in utter annoyance. Last night's idea of possibly having Naruto traveling with her being a good thing was quickly dismissed the next morning. He had been bugging her about how close they were all morning, and it was currently taking all of Temari's willpower not to strangle the brat right there and then. "Ah, come on! You said that 30 minutes ago, Temari!" Naruto whined while kicking sand from out under his shoes. Naruto couldn't understand how anyone could live out here in the desert while being surrounded by sand from everywhere. Quite frankly, all Naruto could think about Wind Country was that it was a barren wasteland. Sighing dramatically out loud in absolute annoyance, Temari replied back to Naruto's comment. "Yes, I did." "So why are you so upset then?" Naruto asked while being completely oblivious to the smoke now coming out of the fuming wind mistress's ears. "Because my Baka escort has asked me. Are we there yet? 100 times during the last freaking half hour!" She screamed before falling onto her hands and knees in total anguish. "Why me? What did I do to deserve being alone in the desert with him?" Temari asked desperately for Kami to answer her thoughts. This short period of rest gave Naruto time to think over what Temari just stated. Naruto suddenly lifted one finger, then another, and then another. He kept doing this until Temari interrupted his actions from her own curiosity. "What are you doing?" she asked, truly curious to what the blonde-haired brat was doing. "I'm counting. Hold on. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 2 = Temari's eyes were now twitching uncontrollably at a very rapid pace from the dim-witted blonde's explanation. "Aha! That would mean I asked you, are we there yet? 10 times during the last 10 minutes. Nuda proclaimed proudly while sporting a victorious grin. Temari could only facepalm herself at Nuda's counting abilities before speaking up. How are you even a soldier ninja if you can't even count? She asked incredulously. Nuda's grin quickly turned into a gloomy look. Oh crap, what did I do now? I swear he's just a large child. She muttered to herself before Nuda turned away from her. I don't even know how I passed myself, Nuda whispered while readying his headband. Note to self. If he reties his headband, it means he's uncomfortable, Temari noted to herself before gazing softly back at Nuda. Nuda then turned around to face Temari again, and she couldn't help but to gasp slightly from noticing the dark circles underneath Nuda's eyes. He was just crying now, she realized all of suddenly. Everyone in the academy hated me, including the teachers, Nuda revealed sadly, which made Temari feel really bad about what she had said to him earlier. Is it also for the same reasons the villagers look at you like the way they do? Temari asked questioningly. Nuda slowly nodded his head, and Temari couldn't stop herself from huffing in utter resent. How could they do this to one of their own soldier ninjas? She thought to herself before bringing up a previous asked question that she had asked him while back at the village. Why do they hate you, Nuda? She asked while resting her right hand on her right hip in an expectant posture. Nuda could only look down at the ground and make a grimacing face before he could answer her. I'll tell you during a more appropriate time, Nuda answered back while trying to make a pathetic fake smile. Temari could only frown at his answer and retorted. I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other more than I would like to, so you might as well spill it. She pointed the butt end of her fan at the now nervous Jinchuriki, who was now gradually backing up. Easy there, Temari! I promise I will tell you later, okay? Nuda pleaded to a now menacing-looking Suna diplomat. Sighing in exasperation, she put away her fan and compromised to herself that it was the best answer she could get out of him without killing the little squirt. Nuda, noticing that she had put away her fan, had to ask her a question that had been bothering him ever since he first met Temari during the Soldier Ninja exams. Temari, why is your main weapon a giant fan? Nuda asked innocently. Temari couldn't stop herself from chuckling at the boy's naive nature and pondered whether or not to explain to him why she did indeed use a giant fan as a weapon. Coming to the conclusion that she might as well tell him why, she decided to show him rather than explain it to him with words. She swiftly opened up her iron fan so that only one moon was showing, much to the puzzlement of Nuda, who was anxiously watching Temari. She quickly brought back her fan so that both her arms were in a launching position, with the fan being held behind her left shoulder. Nuda, realizing what Temari had done so far, could suddenly piece together what was about to happen, and he tried desperately to sprint out of the way, but it was much too late for the poor boy to do anything. She released her arms so that they swung smoothly across her body, which made the fan create a large gust of wind, which carried our unfortunate hero about 100 yards away from where he was originally standing. HHHHHSC-CHMPF-. Nuda cried out before he landed head first into the endless sea of sand. Temari could only laugh at what she saw, which was half of a certain blonde-haired brat's lower body sticking out from the ground. After she had her fill of fun and revenge for having the brat annoy her all morning, she decided to help him out. She walked gracefully towards the now panicking boy, whose legs were now kicking in all directions, desperately trying to get himself out with no avail. Once she reached him, she casually grabbed one of his legs and yanked it so that Nuda's whole body was now launched out from the ground and airborne for about 10 feet. When Nuda finally did hit the ground, he rolled onto his back and began gasping for air. Temari could only smirk at the boy's pain. It was only one moon and I used very little wind core energy to execute that devastating wind release technique, she told Nuda proudly while he was banging his head in an effort to get sand out of his ears. Wait, did I hear that correctly? Wind core energy? Nuda asked, confused by the new term. Temari shook her head in amazement that Nuda couldn't possibly understand it. Yes, wind core energy. Naruto quirked up in excitement, making Temari roll her eyes in frustration. Oh, Kami, help me! Okay, every soldier ninja has a certain nature core energy affinity that is more useful for them compared to others. There are 5 known basic types, and they are fire, wind, lightning, earth, and water. Since I have a wind affinity, I specialize in wind core energy, thus the reason for my fan. Did you get this, Naruto? Naruto? Did you just fall asleep on me? Temari was appalled at seeing the now snoring blonde sleeping quite soundly while still retaining his upright sitting posture. Is that even possible? Temari screamed in her head before simply punching Naruto across the face, which sent him rolling down a very steep hill. I'm awake! I'm awake! Naruto cried out in pain while trying to rub his now swollen cheek in comfort. Did you even listen to my little lesson, Naruto? Temari asked dangerously, which made Naruto gulp a bit before answering back in a hesitant tone. I have wind affinity, don't I? Temari stared at Naruto incredulously when she heard his answer. I guess he's not that stupid, she said to herself before asking. How would you know that, brat? I don't really know. I just remembered, while off on the training trip with Pervy Sage, he said something about the 4th headmaster and his spirit art, the wind ball power. He even went on to say the 4th had wind affinity or something. Ugh, I really don't remember, to be honest. Naruto replied while itching his head. Are you telling me you already knew about wind core energy, and you made me lecture you about it this whole time? Temari exclaimed in deep anger. Naruto laughed sheepishly before responding back. Hee hee, I guess that would explain why I fell asleep, huh? Naruto smiled radiantly, trying desperately to subtly persuade Temari not to kill him right now. Luckily, Temari just facepalmed herself and walked away from the now relieved Naruto. Hey, wait up, Temari! Naruto cried out while quickly trying to climb up the steep hill. Worst C-rank mission ever! Naruto screamed in his head while desperately climbing up the hill. Naruto and Temari had walked the rest of the way in absolute silence, each hating each other for various reasons. It was when Temari noticed her village that the atmosphere began to lighten up. Naruto and Temari began to small talk with one another, and kept talking all the way to the entrance to the village. Halt! A guard ordered, making Naruto stop walking abruptly. Meanwhile, Temari casually kept walking and walked up to the guard. At ease there. He's with me. He's my bodyguard that the Hidden Leaf Village ordered for me to have. I just wish it had been a different Soildeer ninja guarding me. Temari smirked at Naruto while narrowing her eyes, making Naruto stand in discomfort. Hey there, sis. A voice broke the uncomfortable scene, making both Naruto and Temari look towards the source of the sound. Hey, Kankuro. Temari replied back blandly. She didn't want to deal with his antics right now, especially after dealing with Naruto. Kankuro only shook his head in disappointment before noticing a strangely familiar Hidden Leaf Soildeer ninja standing beside his sister. Hey there, have we met before? He asked questioningly. Naruto frowned and squinted back at Kankuro, trying to remember the Suna Soildeer ninja in front of him. He did seem vaguely familiar, especially his makeup. You're the ninja who plays with the dolls, Naruto announced, creating a small murmur of chuckles around the area. Kankuro, getting red from being embarrassed in front of everybody, shouted back in defense. They're puppets, damn it! And I remember you! You're that little squirt named Naruto! Naruto then unexpectedly walked up to the now surprised puppet user. What are you doing? Kankuro asked, getting a little nervous from the closeness. Naruto looked Kankuro up and down before he raised his hand in a flattened position and put his hand on the very top of his head. He then moved it across from his hand in a straight line before it stopped slightly below the top of Kankuro's head. Damn it, you're still taller than me! Naruto whined while receiving a grin from Kankuro. Hey, don't think you're better than me just because you're slightly taller than me. At least I don't wear makeup. Naruto pointed at his face while roaring with laughter. It's war paint, damn it! Kankuro yelled out before grabbing Naruto's collar. Admit that it's war paint. Never. Say it. Never. Baka. Huh. Both soiled-ear ninjas looked towards their side to see a now enraged Temari swing her fan towards their heads. Oh shit. They both thought before getting pulverized by the giant iron fan. All the guards who witnessed that act of brutality could only sweat drop from the watching that scene. I'm surrounded by idiots, Temari thought to herself while her eyes began twitching from seeing Naruto and Kankuro still arguing over his facial paint while on the ground. It was fun seeing you again, Kankuro, but I have to go now, Naruto stated while getting up onto his feet and wiping off the sand and dust from his pants. Huh! But you just got here. At least stay for the night, Naruto, Kankuro offered, to which Naruto politely declined. Sorry, but I completed my mission. I can make it back by nightfall, Naruto answered back before turning around. Except, he couldn't move, let alone turn around. He was being held back by a pile of sand that were constricting his movements. It's considered rude to not say hello to an old friend while visiting his home in most places. An eerily familiar voice was heard by Naruto. Curious as to who was speaking to him, Naruto shielded his eyes from the now sudden sandstorm that was created. He instantly recognized the figure in front of him when he suddenly appeared from the blowing sands. Agara! Naruto exclaimed in excitement, while receiving a frown from a certain puppet user. How come he remembers Gaara right away but not me? I'm the only one with the war paint on my face! Kankuro whined while Temari whacked him over the head with her large fan, indicating for him to be quiet. Naruto, I wish to speak to you privately. Follow me to the Kazekage's office, Gaara stated bluntly before leaving towards the desired location. Naruto, shrugging at the offer, soon followed suit. Geez, I wonder what Gaara could possibly want to talk to that squirt about, Temari thought out loud. Who cares? More importantly, why do you always have to hit people when you are annoyed? Kankuro asked while rubbing his sore head. Temari only smirked at her brother before replying. Simple, people tend to try to not get on my nerves as much then, she remarked, making her brother grumble in frustration. At the Kazekage Tower, both Jinchurikis were reminiscing about the last 3 years until Gaara got down to why Naruto was there in the first place. Naruto, as much as I want to keep chatting about our daily lives, there is something we must discuss first, Gaara said while staring intently at Naruto. Naruto simply nodded his head and crossed his arm and positioned himself in an attentive posture. Lord Jiraiya was here last night, Naruto wide-eyed from hearing that his mentor had visited Gaara so recently. If he met with you that quickly, then it must have been serious, Naruto concluded while nodding his own head in confirmation. Yes, it was very important, Gaara agreed simply. So what did Pervy Sage talk to you about last night? Naruto asked while noticing a subtle smirk forming on Gaara's face. He told me about the Akatsuki. How they're planning on using the tailed beasts for their unknown plans. But most importantly, he told me to tell you that we should go to Kumo for help with our tailed beasts, Gaara stated while watching Naruto's reaction to what he had just said. Naruto let what Gaara just told him sink in before he answered back. If Jiraiya says we should go, then I agree we should go as well, Naruto stated seriously. Gaara nodded his head in agreement before a knock on the door interrupted their private meeting. Come in, Gaara commanded. The large door swung open, revealing a nervous Temari staring at both Jinchurikis. Lord Kazekage, I wish to speak to you privately if you're not too busy at the moment, Temari asked politely while bowing in respect. Gaara glanced back at Naruto and said to him, We leave tomorrow morning. Find Baki and he will show you where you will be sleeping for tonight. Naruto waved goodbye to Gaara and exited the room while closing the door. So what is it, Temari, that you wish to speak to me about? Gaara asked plainly. Yes, Lord Kaze, skip the formalities, Temari, and just call me Gaara when we're alone like this, Gaara interrupted, making Temari correct her previous sentence. Right, Lord Kagara, I mean, I was watching Naruto battle during his fight with Sixth Head Master Sensei when he returned from wherever he had gone for 3 years. Temari explained before continuing. He appears to have gotten stronger, and his most powerful spirit art is the Wind Ball Power, a spirit art created by the Fourth himself. Also, it appears Naruto has a wind affinity also, Temari stated proudly before glancing back down towards Gaara. But he only appeared to look very bored, and this made Temari slightly upset with herself for not gathering better intel on Naruto. I have a whole scouting report on him. Why did you study Naruto with so much detail? Gaara interrupted, making Temari stutter before answering back. Because he's the only person I've ever seen defeat you. Not beat, but defeat you, Lord Gaara, Temari explained while staring at her younger brother intently. It doesn't matter if he knows any new spirit arts, or even if he is slightly off. Gaara smiled slightly before continuing on. It's who he is that makes him truly powerful. No scouting report can say that, Gaara explained before going back to his endless supply of paperwork. Temari was confused by Gaara's explanation and pressed on. What do you mean? Who he is? Temari asked quizzically. Gaara, sighing from seeing his sister not quite understanding his explanation, came to an ultimatum. If you really want to know why Naruto is so powerful, then come with Naruto and I to Kumo. We are leaving tomorrow morning, Gaara stated calmly. Temari dropped her jaw. Why the hell are they going to Kumo? She asked herself before speaking up. Why must you and Naruto go to Kumo? Temari asked, confused about the whole ordeal. It's a long story, and I'll explain it to you all tomorrow if you come with, Gaara answered back plainly. Temari thought about it, and then asked honestly, Is Naruto really stronger than you, Gaara? Gaara looked up and stared directly into his sister's eyes before replying back. There is no doubt in my soul that he is stronger than me, Gaara admitted with all seriousness in his tone before resuming back to his paperwork. Temari just stood there in thought and pondered what her younger brother had just told her. In all honesty, she was curious as to why Naruto was so powerful. She finally came to the conclusion that it would be best if she went along with those two to Kumo. Besides, Kankuro could handle the duties of the Kazekage for a couple of weeks, though she seriously doubted that he would enjoy having to do the endless amounts of paperwork a Kage was forced to do. Grinning from this idea, she knew right there and then that she should definitely go for that reason alone. Temari quickly left the room, leaving Gaara to his own thoughts. He couldn't focus on his paperwork since he was replaying his whole conversation that he had with Naruto. What did Naruto mean by his sexy spirit art? Gaara thought quietly to himself. Well, whatever it does, I have a feeling Temari will not enjoy seeing it during our trip to Kumo. Gaara smiled to himself. Only Naruto could make me express such wide range of emotions in such a short amount of time, Gaara thought pleasantly to himself. But Gaara knew this was a mission, and that the whole Soildeer ninja world was relying on them to complete their mission no matter what. It was obvious to Gaara what the true mission was: to destroy and prevent the criminal organization, the Akatsuki, from completing their goal.